the seat no one wanted. The stadium was already roaring when he walked in. Thousands of people. Bright lights. Cameras flashing. The championship game of the year. And Malik Carter was about to sit in the wrong seat. He didn't mean to. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He wasn't trying to break rules. He just followed the number printed on his ticket. Section A. Row 1. Seat 3. Right on the 50-yard line. Right next to the VIP box. Right where people like him weren't supposed to sit. Malik adjusted his worn jacket, the fabric faded at the elbows. His shoes were clean, but old. His hands were rough from years of working construction shifts. At 45 he looked older. Life had pressed on him hard. He felt eyes following him as he stepped down toward the front row. The seats were plush leather. Corporate executives in tailored suits were laughing loudly. A woman draped in diamonds paused mid-conversation when she saw him. Malik stopped in front of seat 3. This is mine, he told himself. He double-checked the ticket. Section A. Row 1. Seat 3. He sat down. And everything around him shifted. The man to his left, a silver-haired businessman with a gold watch thick as a bracelet, slowly turned his head. I think you're confused, the man said, smiling without warmth. Malik felt it instantly. That feeling. The one he had felt his entire life. The quiet assumption that he didn't belong. He swallowed. No, sir. This is my seat. The businessman chuckled. These seats cost more than most people's cars. Malik held out his ticket with steady fingers. The woman on his right leaned away slightly, clutching her purse closer. A security guard began walking down the aisle. People were staring now. Whispers spread. Wrong section. Must be a mistake. Probably counterfeit. Malik's ears burned. He could have stood up. He could have walked away. He had done that before in life, taken the easier path, avoided confrontation. But tonight, something inside him refused. The security guard stopped in front of him. Sir, may I see your ticket? Malik handed it over. The guard scanned it with a small device. A beep. Then another. The guard's expression changed. He looked at Malik. Then at the businessman. Then back at Malik. It's valid, the guard said. Silence. Front row. VIP access. The businessman's smile vanished. Malik felt something he hadn't expected. Not pride. Not anger. But sadness. Because the doubt had come so quickly. So naturally. The guard handed the ticket back. Enjoy the game, sir. Sir. The word hung in the air. But the tension didn't leave. The businessman muttered under his breath. Must have won it in a raffle. Malik heard it. He always heard it. And as the players ran onto the field and fireworks exploded overhead, Malik felt something he shouldn't have felt at a football game. He felt small. The truth was, Malik hadn't planned on attending. He almost sold the ticket. It had been sent anonymously 2 weeks earlier. No return address. Just an envelope. Inside, the VIP ticket, and a short handwritten note. You deserve to see what you built. That was it. No signature. No explanation. At first he thought it was a joke. But the ticket was real. And tonight he sat in the seat no one thought he belonged in. The game started. The crowd erupted. But Malik barely watched the field. He stared at the massive stadium lights towering above. He remembered pouring concrete here 15 years ago. Back when this stadium was nothing but steel bones and blueprints. Back when he was just another laborer working double shifts to support his wife and newborn son. Back when no one knew his name. He had helped build this place. His hands had shaped its foundation. And now people questioned whether he could sit in it. The businessman beside him answered a call loudly. Yes, I'm at the championship. Front row, of course. These tickets are exclusive. He glanced at Malik again. As they should be. Malik's jaw tightened. He tried to focus on the game. A touchdown sent the stadium into chaos. Fans leapt to their feet. Malik stood too, instinctively. And for a brief second he forgot everything else. The energy. The unity. The roar of thousands moving as one. But then someone behind him shouted, "Sit down." The voice wasn't about blocking the view. It was about him. Malik sat. And something shifted inside him again. Not anger. Not embarrassment. Something deeper. A memory. His son at 8 years old asking him why other parents wouldn't let their kids come over. His wife telling him to keep his head down at work. The promotion he never got. The contracts his company never received. The way respect always seemed conditional. As halftime approached, the announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. Tonight we honor a special guest. Someone who played a critical role in the construction of this very stadium. Malik didn't pay attention. The businessman clapped politely. The screen above the field flickered to life. Images of workers in hard hats filled the giant display. Construction footage from 15 years ago. Steel beams. Concrete pouring. Men working under the sun. Malik froze. The video zoomed in. A younger version of him appeared on the screen, laughing, covered in dust, lifting a heavy beam with his crew. The crowd murmured. The announcer continued. 15 years ago, when a design flaw threatened to collapse the east wing during construction, one man noticed the miscalculation. One man refused to stay silent. One man prevented a disaster. Malik's heart pounded. He remembered that day. The supervisors dismissing him. The engineers ignoring him. The moment he stood his ground and demanded a review. The flaw had been real, and fixing it had saved the stadium millions, and possibly lives. But no one had celebrated him. He was just told to get back to work. Until now. The announcer's voice grew louder. Please stand and help us recognize the man whose courage and expertise saved this stadium before it ever opened. Mr. Malik Carter. Everything stopped. The businessman turned slowly. The woman in diamonds gasped. The camera light found Malik instantly. 30,000 faces shifted toward him. Malik didn't move. He couldn't. The guard from earlier reappeared, this time smiling widely. That's you, sir. Sir. Again. The crowd began to applaud. Then cheer. Then rise to their feet. A standing ovation. For him. Malik stood slowly. The businessman stared, stunned. The giant screen now showed Malik live. Older, weathered, humbled. The announcer continued. After saving this project, Mr. Carter went on to start his own safety consulting firm, preventing structural failures across the state. Tonight's championship is sponsored by Carter Structural Integrity Group. The logo appeared on screen. His company. The same company that had recently purchased naming rights for the stadium's east wing. The same company sitting quietly behind dozens of major city developments. The same company that had chosen to remain low profile. Malik hadn't wanted attention. He just wanted to do good work. The businessman's face turned pale. You own? Malik looked at him calmly. I build things, he said simply. The applause thundered. And in that moment the seat didn't feel wrong anymore. But what he felt surprised him. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It was clarity. Respect shouldn't require proof. Kindness shouldn't depend on status. And the people who judge fastest often understand the least. As the crowd continued cheering, Malik made a quiet decision. The second half of this game would change more than just a scoreboard. Because tonight wasn't about football. It was about something much bigger. And the real lesson had only just begun. The man in the suit who didn't stand. The applause lasted longer than Malik expected. Long enough for the businessman beside him to remain seated. Everyone else stood. 30,000 people. Players on the field. Coaches. Even the security guards. But the silver-haired executive with the gold watch stayed seated, clapping slowly, his expression tight. Malik noticed. Not because he cared about the man's pride. But because it confirmed something he had known his entire life. Some people would rather protect their ego than admit they were wrong. The announcer continued, Mr. Carter will be joining us in the owner's suite for the second half. The camera zoomed in again. Malik adjusted his jacket and gave a small nod. The businessman leaned closer. You should have said something. Malik looked at him calmly. About what? That you were involved. Malik smiled faintly. Would that have changed how you spoke to me? The man didn't answer. Because the truth was obvious. Two stadium officials approached. Their posture was respectful, almost nervous. Mr. Carter, this way, sir. Sir. Again. Malik stepped into the aisle. The crowd parted instinctively. And for the first time that night he walked without shrinking. But as he followed the officials toward the private suite elevators, something tugged at him. He turned. The businessman avoided eye contact. The woman with diamonds suddenly found her phone fascinating. Malik paused. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped back toward his seat. The officials looked confused. Sir? I'll join you in a moment, Malik said. He turned to the businessman. You asked if I won the ticket in a raffle, Malik said quietly. I didn't. The man shifted uncomfortably. But I also didn't sit here to prove anything. The businessman swallowed. Look, Malik raised a hand gently. Not in anger. Just to stop excuses. You felt comfortable questioning me. That means you've never had to be questioned like that yourself. Silence. Malik's voice stayed calm. I hope one day you sit somewhere and realize how heavy that feels. Then he turned and walked away. No shouting. No humiliation. Just truth. And somehow, that felt heavier. Inside the private suite, everything was different. Crystal glasses, leather couches, a catered buffet. Executives from major sponsors stood when he entered. One of them, a sharply dressed woman in her early 40s, extended her hand. Mr. Carter. I'm Denise Warren, CEO of Warren Holdings. We've been hoping to meet you. Malik shook her hand firmly. Pleasure. Denise smiled. Your company's safety protocols have saved 3 of our developments this year. You have no idea how much we respect your work. Malik nodded humbly. I just fix what people overlook. She studied him carefully. That's a rare quality. The game resumed below them. Cheers echoed through the glass walls. But inside the suite, another kind of game was unfolding. Denise leaned slightly closer. We're bidding on the new city transit expansion next quarter. Malik's expression didn't change, but he knew what that meant. It was the biggest infrastructure project in the state's history. Billions of dollars. Hundreds of contractors. And? Malik asked. We want Carter Structural Integrity Group leading the safety oversight. The room quieted subtly. Several executives exchanged glances. One of them, a younger man with slicked hair, cleared his throat. It's a high-profile contract. We need someone visible. Malik met his eyes steadily. Visible? The man hesitated. Well, you know, public-facing. Investors feel reassured by a certain presentation. Malik understood immediately. Different suit, different image, different background. Same old doubt. Denise shot the younger executive a sharp look. What he means, she corrected smoothly, is that the board will need convincing. Malik gave a slow nod. I've convinced worse, he said quietly. Down below, the underdog team began mounting a comeback. The crowd grew louder. Momentum shifted. Malik watched closely. He saw himself in that team. Written off early. Doubted loudly. Forced to prove themselves twice as hard. Denise followed his gaze. You believe in comebacks? Malik smiled slightly. I believe in preparation. When people underestimate you, preparation becomes your greatest weapon. She liked that answer. Very much. Meanwhile, back in Section A, Row 1, Seat 3. The businessman couldn't focus on the game. His mind replayed every word he had said. He pulled out his phone. Typed quickly. Deleted. Typed again. Finally he stood. Not for the game. For something else. He made his way toward the suite level. In the private box, Denise extended a folder. Preliminary agreement, she said. Pending board approval. Malik didn't rush to take it. He asked one question instead. If I lead this project, will my team get full credit? Denise blinked. Of course. No silent partnerships. No hidden names. Agreed. Malik nodded slowly. Then took the folder. At that exact moment, a staff member approached. Mr. Carter, there's a gentleman outside asking to speak with you. Malik raised an eyebrow. Name? The staff member checked. Richard Halston. The businessman. Denise looked curious. Friend of yours? Malik paused. Then gave a small, thoughtful smile. Not yet. He stepped outside the suite. Richard Halston stood there, posture less rigid than before. For the first time he looked unsure. Mr. Carter, Richard began. I owe you an apology. Malik said nothing. Richard continued, I judged you. Immediately. I assumed you didn't belong. And I was wrong. Malik studied him carefully. This wasn't forced. It was uncomfortable. And that made it real. I appreciate that, Malik said. Richard exhaled. My company invests in infrastructure. I've probably sat in meetings reviewing projects your firm handled. Malik nodded. You probably have. Richard hesitated. If you'd be open to it, I'd like to learn more about your company. Malik considered the moment. Here it was. The instant karma everyone expects. The chance to dismiss him. Embarrass him. Reject him. Instead, Malik did something unexpected. Join us, he said, gesturing toward the suite. Richard blinked. Excuse me? Come watch the second half. As my guest. The man's pride wrestled visibly with gratitude. You do that. Malik's expression softened. I don't build walls, he said. I build foundations. Richard stepped inside. And for the first time that night, he stood when Malik entered the room. On the field, the underdog team scored again. The stadium exploded. Momentum had fully shifted. Denise leaned toward Malik. Looks like the wrong side was winning at first. Malik watched the players celebrate. Games aren't decided in the first quarter, he said calmly. Neither are people. As the clock ticked down toward the final minutes, Malik felt something steady inside him. Not anger. Not validation. Purpose. He glanced through the glass down at Section A. Seat 3 sat empty now. But it no longer represented rejection. It represented something else entirely. Proof that belonging isn't granted. It's claimed. In the second half, it wasn't just about football. It was about what happens when humility meets power. And when power chooses grace. The scoreboard showed 5 minutes left. The underdogs were 1 touchdown away from a miracle. Malik leaned forward slightly. Not because of the game, but because he knew something bigger was about to happen. And this time, he wasn't the only one about to feel it. The night the masks fell, the ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel shimmered like a palace built from glass and ambition. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings painted in gold leaf. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. Cameras flashed. Influencers adjusted their smiles. Business leaders sipped imported champagne and spoke in low, powerful tones. And at the center of it all stood Nathaniel Vale. To them, he was the man of the hour, the visionary investor, the self-made tech mogul, the golden example of success. To Elena Carter, he was something else entirely. A lie. Elena stood near the back of the room, her simple navy dress a quiet contrast to the glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos around her. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She held a small silver clutch, not for style but for what was inside. A flash drive. And inside that drive? Truth. Nathaniel's voice carried across the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice smooth and commanding, tonight isn't just about celebrating growth. It's about celebrating impact. It's about what we build when we dare to dream bigger than the world expects us to. Applause erupted. Elena felt her jaw tighten. Dream bigger? He had crushed dreams. Stolen them. Erased names from documents. Replaced signatures. Taking credit for ideas that were never his. Including hers. 3 years ago, Elena had been the quiet engineer in a corner office. The one who stayed late. The one who built the foundation of the algorithm that launched Vale Tech into international headlines. Nathaniel had promised partnership. He delivered betrayal. Her name disappeared from the patent filings. Her access to company servers was revoked overnight. A termination letter cited performance concerns. Performance. The word had haunted her for months. Tonight she would redefine it. Across the room, Marcus Reed, now Chief Operating Officer of Vale Tech, spotted her. His smile faltered. He excused himself from a conversation with a venture capitalist and walked briskly toward her. Elena, he said, lowering his voice, you shouldn't be here. Funny, she replied calmly. I helped build the reason for this celebration. I think I belong. Marcus glanced around nervously. Nathaniel made it clear. After what happened? After what happened? Her eyes met his. Steady. Unblinking. Or after what he did? Marcus exhaled sharply. This isn't the place. It's the perfect place. Before he could respond, the lights dimmed slightly as a large screen behind the stage flickered on. Nathaniel smiled wider. Tonight, he continued, I'm proud to announce Vale Tech's expansion into 3 new global markets. And to celebrate, we're unveiling the next evolution of our flagship system. The screen displayed a sleek promotional video. Code animations, global maps, testimonials. Elena watched closely. Every frame was built on her architecture. The applause grew louder. Nathaniel raised his glass. To vision. To resilience. To leadership. The crowd echoed the toast. Elena stepped forward. 1 step. Then another. Marcus grabbed her wrist lightly. Don't do this. She gently removed his hand. I already did, she whispered. Earlier that day, Elena had met with someone who had once mentored Nathaniel in his early career. Victor Hale, a retired venture capitalist known for valuing integrity over profit. Victor had listened. Really listened. Elena hadn't come with anger. She came with documentation. Email threads. Version histories. Code timestamps. Original drafts of partnership agreements. Backup servers she had quietly preserved before her access was revoked. And one more thing. A recording. Nathaniel's voice. You're brilliant, Elena. But brilliance without leverage is invisible. Let me handle the investors. Trust me. Trust me. The phrase tasted bitter. Victor had leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. If what you're showing me is accurate, he had said slowly, This isn't just unethical. It's illegal. It is accurate, Elena replied. He nodded once. Then tonight will be interesting. Back in the ballroom, Nathaniel gestured toward the screen. And now, he said proudly, a demonstration of the system that changed everything. The lights dimmed further. But before the demo could begin, the screen flickered. Nathaniel frowned slightly. The promotional video froze. Then disappeared. In its place appeared a single file directory. Gasps rippled through the crowd. What is this? Nathaniel muttered under his breath. The directory opened automatically. File names appeared with timestamps. 3 years old. The title of the core algorithm. And beneath it, author, Elena Carter. The room went silent. Nathaniel forced a laugh. Seems we're experiencing a minor technical glitch. But the screen didn't stop. An email thread appeared. From Elena Carter to Nathaniel Vale. Subject, Final Build, Phase 3 Completion. Her detailed explanation of the system architecture filled the screen, followed by his reply. Outstanding work. We'll present this to investors next week. I'll handle the patent submission. Another click. Patent document draft. Original co-founders listed. Nathaniel Vale. Elena Carter. Then another version. Filed document. Only one name remained. Nathaniel Vale. A murmur spread through the ballroom like wildfire. Nathaniel's face drained of color. Turn it off, he hissed toward the tech booth. But the tech team looked confused. They weren't controlling it. Victor Hale stepped forward from the front row, his presence commanding attention even without a microphone. I asked for this, he said clearly. The room stilled. Nathaniel blinked. Victor, this is a misunderstanding. Is it? Victor's tone was calm but steel-edged. Because I've just reviewed 3 years of documentation that suggest otherwise. The final slide appeared. A short audio clip. Nathaniel's voice filled the ballroom speakers. She's too naive to fight this. By the time she realizes what happened, the board will already be locked in. A collective inhale swept the room. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. That recording is taken out of context. Elena stepped onto the stage. For the first time that night, every eye in the room turned not to him, but to her. No, she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her chest. It's perfectly in context. She faced the crowd. I built the system you're celebrating tonight. I was promised partnership. Instead, I was erased. Silence. Not awkward. Not confused. Heavy. Intentional. I didn't come here for revenge, she continued. I came for recognition. For truth. For the simple acknowledgement that innovation doesn't belong only to those loud enough to claim it. Nathaniel attempted to regain control. This is a personal dispute, he snapped. A disgruntled former employee trying to damage a company's reputation. Victor turned toward the investors seated near the stage. I've already instructed the legal team to review this matter immediately. Until then, all expansion funding is frozen. A wave of shock rippled through the executives. Frozen. Investors began whispering urgently among themselves. Phones appeared in hands. Nathaniel looked at Marcus. Marcus looked away. In that single moment, the power dynamic shifted. Nathaniel had built his empire on perception. And perception was collapsing in real time. Elena didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stood tall. Because this wasn't about humiliation. It was about restoration. Security approached the stage, not for her. For him. Mr. Vale, one guard said carefully, we've been asked to escort you to a private room. Nathaniel's eyes burned into Elena's. You think this makes you powerful? He hissed. She met his gaze without flinching. No, she said softly. The truth does. As he was guided away, the ballroom felt different. Lighter. Like oxygen had returned after years of suffocation. Victor stepped beside Elena. You handled that with remarkable restraint, he said quietly. I didn't want destruction, she replied. I wanted accountability. He nodded. You may get both. Reporters who had been invited to cover the expansion announcement were now pivoting their cameras toward her. Elena. Is it true you were the original architect? What's next for you? Will you file a lawsuit? She took a slow breath. For now, she said into the nearest microphone, I'm focused on ensuring innovation is credited fairly. What happens next will depend on integrity. Across the room, Marcus stood frozen. For years, he had justified his silence. It's not my battle. That's just how business works. Stay loyal. Stay safe. But watching Elena stand alone under those lights, he felt something crack inside him. Because loyalty without integrity is cowardice. And safety built on injustice is fragile. The night that was meant to celebrate Nathaniel's dominance had become the night his narrative unraveled. And the woman he underestimated had just become the most powerful person in the room. But the story wasn't over. Because truth is only the beginning. Consequences were coming. And in the quiet aftermath of the ballroom's chaos, Elena knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had reclaimed her voice. And this time, no one would erase it again. The cost of silence. By morning, the story had detonated across every major business outlet in the country. Tech mogul accused of intellectual theft. Veil Tech expansion halted amid explosive allegations. Former engineer claims she built the billion-dollar algorithm. Clips from the Grand Meridian Ballroom played on repeat. Nathaniel's frozen expression. The patent documents on screen. Elena's steady voice saying, "I came for recognition." The world had shifted overnight. But public exposure was only the beginning. The fallout. Veil Tech's stock opened 12% down. By noon it had dropped 23%. Board members who had once praised Nathaniel's decisive leadership now issued carefully worded statements about internal review processes and commitment to transparency. Commitment. Elena watched it all from a small conference room in Victor Hale's private office. The same room where she had first laid out her evidence. Victor stood by the window reading updates on his tablet. "They're scrambling," he said calmly. "The board has called an emergency session." Elena nodded, though her stomach twisted. Victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like impact. Like a wave crashing after years of silent pressure. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Victor asked. She didn't hesitate. "Yes." The lawsuit. 2 days later, Elena filed a formal claim. Not just for intellectual property theft, but for fraud, misrepresentation, and breach of fiduciary duty. The evidence was airtight. Her archived code repositories contained metadata timestamps predating every official filing. Server logs showed her credentials were revoked hours after she requested written confirmation of co-ownership. Internal emails revealed Nathaniel had instructed legal counsel to expedite sole filing. But the most damaging piece? Marcus. For years, Marcus Reed had lived in Nathaniel's shadow. He had witnessed the partnership discussions. He had attended the investor meeting where Elena's prototype was first demonstrated. He had seen her name on the early drafts. And he had said nothing. Until now. 3 nights after the gala, Marcus requested a meeting with Elena. They met at a quiet cafe on the edge of the city. No cameras. No press. Just history sitting between them. "You were there," Elena said quietly once they sat down. "Yes." "You knew." "Yes." The word carried weight. Marcus looked exhausted. "I told myself it wasn't my place," he admitted. "That if you fought it, I'd support you. But when they revoked your access, when your name disappeared, I chose my position over my conscience." Elena studied him carefully. "Why now?" He swallowed. "Because watching you stand there alone, while I stood in the crowd pretending not to see, it made something very clear." "And what's that?" "I wasn't loyal. I was complicit." Silence settled between them. Then he slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed board communications. Private memos. Internal discussions showing Nathaniel knowingly misrepresented authorship to secure venture capital. "I'll testify," Marcus said. Elena didn't smile. But she nodded. Because accountability doesn't erase the past. It strengthens the future. The boardroom reckoning. 1 week later, the Veil Tech board convened under extraordinary scrutiny. Nathaniel arrived flanked by attorneys. Gone was the confident grin. Gone was the commanding posture. In its place, controlled anger. Elena entered separately with her legal team and Victor beside her. For the first time since her termination, she sat at the same table where expansion strategies had once been discussed without her name attached. The evidence was presented methodically. Documentation. Audio. Metadata. Witness testimony. When Marcus took the stand, the room shifted. "Yes," he said firmly under oath. Elena Carter was the original architect of the system. Nathaniel Veil intentionally removed her from patent filings. Nathaniel's attorney attempted damage control. This was a misunderstanding between ambitious colleagues. Marcus didn't flinch. "No," he replied. "It was calculated." Calculated. The word landed like a verdict. By late afternoon, the board reached its decision. Nathaniel Veil was immediately removed as CEO pending full legal resolution. All executive authority suspended. Stock trading temporarily halted. and an independent audit launched. He rose slowly from his chair as the decision was announced. His gaze found Elena. "You've destroyed everything," he said quietly, his voice tight. She met his eyes. "No," she answered calmly. "You did. The offer." 3 days later, Elena received a call she hadn't expected. The board wanted to meet. Not for testimony. For leadership. In a private session, the interim chair addressed her directly. "Miss Carter," she began, "your integrity under pressure has been noted. The foundation of Vailtech is yours. We would like to formally reinstate you, not just as co-founder." Elena waited. As CEO. The room went still. Victor glanced at her, saying nothing. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't poetic justice. It was responsibility. Elena took a breath. "On one condition," she said. The board members leaned in. "Full transparency. Public acknowledgement of shared authorship. Structural reform of internal IP policies. And equity redistribution reflecting original ownership." Pause. Then the chair nodded slowly. "Agreed. Public restoration." 2 weeks after the gala, Vailtech held another press conference. No chandeliers. No dramatic unveiling. Just accountability. The company issued a formal statement acknowledging Elena Carter as co-founder and original architect of its flagship system. All patent filings were amended. Equity shares corrected. An internal ethics oversight division established. When Elena stepped to the podium, there was no anger in her voice. Only clarity. "Innovation thrives where credit is shared," she said. "Power without accountability is fragile. But integrity builds institutions that last." Reporters asked about Nathaniel. She answered simply. "The legal process will determine individual consequences. My focus is building something better." And she meant it. The quiet moment. That night, Elena stood alone in the now familiar executive office overlooking the city. The same skyline she once admired from a cubicle in the corner. The same building where her access badge had once stopped working. She placed her hand on the glass. Success didn't feel like dominance. It felt like alignment. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You could have walked away quietly. Instead you chose war. She stared at it for a long moment. Then typed a response. "I chose truth." She blocked the number. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Inside, the silence was peaceful. But not naive. Because power shifts always create ripples. And somewhere in the background, legal battles were still unfolding. Nathaniel wasn't finished. And neither was the story. Elena had reclaimed her voice. She had reclaimed her work. Now she would prove something even more powerful. That leadership built on integrity doesn't just win. It transforms. Legacy. 6 months later, the skyline looked the same. But Vailtech did not. The glass tower still reflected the morning sun. The lobby still hummed with the quiet rhythm of innovation. Screens still displayed lines of code and real-time global analytics. Yet something fundamental had shifted. Not in the architecture. In the culture. Rebuilding from the inside. Elena's first act as CEO wasn't a product launch. It wasn't a market expansion. It was an audit of people, policies, and power structures. She commissioned an independent ethics board. She created a transparent authorship registry that tracked contribution histories in real time. She introduced a policy requiring multi-party IP verification before any patent filing. No more invisible architects. No more silent erasures. Some executives resisted. "This will slow innovation," one senior director argued during a strategy meeting. Elena met his concern calmly. "Integrity isn't friction," she replied. "It's foundation." The room fell silent. Because the data didn't lie. Employee retention rose by 18% within.